And yeah, this is why I think we need to spice things up. It's weird. I never get phone calls, especially not on this one here. Hello?
So I heard you didn't like my movie.
Yeah, I mean, you're clearly doing the same thing as the new Halloween. Like, you're banking on nostalgia and compensating with gore and like very complicated action stunts, while also gaslighting the fans into thinking that this is an actual good meta Scream movie, while it's actually really not.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah, this new trilogy is literally just about making money. But you're smart enough not to insult your fans, and at the end of the way, you get away with it.
And how much money do you think I could get if I killed you right now?
Not that much. I think nobody cares. I have like 400 subscribers.
I guess that means no one will come to save you.
Yeah.
No! God, please, no! No!
Welcome back to Torn Apart. Today we're talking about Scream. This is my second Scream video just this year because I basically have a lot of things to say. I'm a Scream super fan and I have some ideas for Scream 7. Even though it's technically not officially greenlit, I'm pretty sure it's gonna happen. I mean, I was looking around on the internet trying to discover when Scream 6 is actually coming out on streaming, and there is no official date. Same goes with the release of the Blu-ray or the 4K or whatever, which means that they want to keep it at cinemas as long as possible. And take advantage of the fan base as long as possible. So it is 100% happening. Maybe it's not happening next year, but I don't care. I wanted to talk about Scream 7 predictions. I didn't come up with this idea. There are a lot of other YouTube videos out there talking about these kind of predictions, but they mostly come from fans who enjoy the new trilogy, and I'm incredibly skeptical, and I've been mostly on the negative side when it comes to Scream 2022 and Scream 6 as well. So my predictions for the next Scream movie are also fixes for the franchise overall, things that I think should happen and not necessarily things that will 100% happen just because I want to tick some boxes and crown myself as like a Scream Wizard superfan. I had this idea by looking at Haunted Hippie's videos on the Scream predictions, and basically every single year she made a Scream prediction video and then she reacted to those same Scream predictions after the movie came out basically, and I was like, this is incredibly fun, mostly because this is one of those franchises where I have a lot of things to say, and it's actually incredibly fun to speculate about what might happen, and it's not necessarily plot twist as much as it's scratching the kind of weird itch that you have at the back of your mind where you're like, oh, I wonder if they'll do this or they'll do that, especially as a horror fan, because we really respond positively to any kind of nostalgia that they throw at us within this big horror franchises.
Looks like some sort of legally safe knockoff of an 80s horror character with miniature swords for fingers instead of knives.
I'm Scary Terry. You can run, but you can't hide, bitch.
Here is the bingo card, by the way, and I'll be adding like new little bingo images so that you can keep track of what I'm talking about. We'll start with the location. The location has always been incredibly important when it comes to the Scream franchise. Every single movie takes place in a different part of the US, and there are some movies, of course, which take place in Woodsboro, but they always try to spice things up and to have you explore different urban environments. So I'm like, this new trilogy is all about breaking expectations, so if you want to follow in that direction, definitely we don't have to go back to Woodsboro for the third movie in this franchise, and definitely we cannot go to Hollywood like they did in the third movie. So my guess for the next movie is gonna be something completely different that we've never seen before. Scream 7 is gonna take place in Miami.
Oh shit, here we go again.
I know it sounds weird. I know that people have like a weird image of what Miami actually looks like, and the people who go there as well. But my whole idea of this new movie is that it's gonna be taking place during a summer vacation, and the four main characters are gonna go there to relax and try to get away from everything. And actually it would be incredibly interesting if it happened the summer right after what happened in New York, meaning that they would not expect anything to happen to them, because very often these kind of like Scream serial murders tend to happen on special occasions. So anniversary dates of people's deaths, anniversary dates of people surviving a specific event. So it would be incredibly revolutionary if this was almost a direct sequel to what happened to New York, so that the main characters would still be traumatized, but at the same time they wouldn't be expecting anything to happen, especially when they are on vacation. Plus, can you imagine like a cold opening scene taking place, for example, on a beach, someone answering the phone, being like at night by themselves on the beach, and Ghostface contacting them and killing them there, and of course there is no one around that can actually save you, and maybe he could even stage the body slash the murder scene like they did for the original movie with Drew Barrymore's killing at the very beginning. It would be incredibly gruesome, and also it's something that we haven't seen in a while, so the Ghostface killer actually taking its time to kill the victim, but also to stage the body to say something about its reasonings and its modus operandi and why it's doing what it's doing, basically. And I think there is a lot of potential when it comes to going to the south, going to a very sunny area as well, mostly because there is that like horror cliche thing of we don't really expect horrible things to happen when it's sunny outside, when it's nice weather. And if a movie like this was taking place in a place like Miami, then you would subvert expectations without a doubt. You could have a lot of interesting like locations, you could have hotels and playing around with different like hotel rooms, hotel cards and stuff like that. You could have things going on with boats, for example, as well. You could even have a chase sequence taking place in a mall, because there are a lot of malls in Miami. But anyways, I feel like there's a lot of potential with this location. That's why I put it on my bingo card. The next thing that I put on my bingo card is about raising the stakes. If there is one thing that I really didn't like about Scream 6 is the fact that almost everyone survived in the main character's realm, and same thing goes with the legacy characters. If you think about Gale, if you think about Kirby, like the thing that I hated the most was people like getting stabbed constantly, going to the hospital and then running around and the last minute being like, oh, here I am, which is what Mindy did exactly in the last act. It was so incredibly weird, and Chad as well surviving like all of those stab wounds. I don't know, it just felt like nothing was supposed to happen to our main characters, and we need to change that. This is exactly what gave me the idea to make this video, the realization that Scream 6 is actually the middle of a trilogy. You know what happens in the middle of a trilogy? Very often they don't really take a lot of risks, because you don't want to hurt the main characters too much, because you know they're coming back for the end of the trilogy, but also you don't want to make it too gory, you don't want to make it too over the top, because otherwise then you have to up the stakes even more in the third one. So the second movie in a trilogy ends up being quite stale very often because of that reason. It's the same reason why Halloween Kills, for example, ended up being so incredibly weird, because it was stuck in between Halloween and Halloween Ends, and they literally could not finish the storyline, because otherwise there would not be an end of the trilogy with the third movie. So that's why with this third movie, so Scream 7, they will be able to actually kill some of the main characters. If it was for me, personally, if I had to choose, I would definitely kill Sam, because I don't think that she's that interesting as a final girl. She's not really well written as a character, and at the end of the day I don't really like what they did with the Billy Loomis kind of legacy character. Plus Tara is 100% a better final girl, so it would be interesting to kill her off as well. It would be some kind of character development that you would not see coming, because if you think that Tara is at the same level as Sidney Prescott, then you know that she's 100% safe, she cannot die within these movies, so they would be subverting expectations without a doubt. But if they don't do that, then it would be really interesting to kill Gale Weathers, and it would even be better if Gale Weathers died in the cold opening scene at the very beginning. It would be incredible. And actually have an entire like almost plot synopsis for what I imagine a perfect Scream 7 to look like, and we'll go through step by step so you can actually imagine it with me. But for the time being, imagine either Sam or Gale Weathers are gonna die in the next movie, and if the Gale Weathers character dies, she dies in the beginning, and it is mostly related to the fact that we have another Ghostface Killer, who is trying to get Sidney Prescott's attention because Sidney Prescott went into hiding in the last film, also because of contractual reasons she couldn't be there, of course, but within the story of the universe she went into hiding, so it would make sense for the Ghostface Killer to try and get her back within the main storyline, because maybe he's not able to find her, so the only way to lure her in back again is to kill another legacy character. Plus, Gil has kind of retrograded as a character, so it would be quite interesting to kill her right now because there is not anywhere else to go with her character. I don't think she's interesting anymore. My next space on the bingo card is gonna be taken by legacy characters, so of course I talked about Gil Weathers coming back in this movie, but I want Sidney Prescott to come back in this movie, and specifically around the third act. So not from the beginning. I don't want the legacy characters to be there to help with the investigation. Besides Kirby is gonna be there since the beginning. She's gonna be the only one that stays there from point A to point Z. Sidney Prescott, I want her to stay into hiding until the very last second, where she makes basically an appearance as a plot twist. And I feel like that could be really interesting to do, mostly because the Ghostface Killers, very often we feel like they know everything about everyone. It's almost impossible to surprise them. So it would be really cool for Sidney to actually have planned something in advance, knowing that these Ghostface Killers were gonna come back and do something and prepare something, and she would surprise them and actually be there in the final act. I feel like there would be something very interesting to do with her. It would finally show that she's prepared to end this finally, and that she's not just being dragged in by a new Ghostface Killer every single movie and she feels like she has to be there to go through all the investigation and stuff like that. We already done that with her so many different times, so we need to spice things up. I kind of want Sidney Prescott to be almost like a Terminator within this Scream 7. I want her to be there just to kill people.
You forgot the first rule of remakes, Jill. Don't fuck with the original.
A big important thing about the Scream franchise is the meta criticism. It's the fact that this entire series is all about criticizing the horror franchises, the horror cliches, the horror tropes, and it's something that I completely hated about Scream 6. It almost didn't have anything interesting to add to the conversation. And I feel like this is something that people will realize when they rewatch the movie or when they watch it within all the other movies within the franchise. But I noticed it quite immediately, and that's why I had such a strong reaction to it, and I really didn't like it, because for me that's the thing that I like the most about Scream. It's not just a slasher, it's also a meta postmodern slasher. So there is a lot of different readings that you can have with it, and you can have a lot of fun dissecting all the different tropes with the movie itself. So for Scream 7, what is the meta commentary about? It's about nothing. There is no meta commentary in Scream 7, and let me tell you why. I don't want any rules as well. I don't want yet another scene with Mindy explaining like the new rules of being part of the franchise, being the last movie in the franchise. It makes no sense. Plus they don't respect their own rules very often. No one is safe, but then the plot goes in a complete different direction, so of course it's stupid to do it, and I don't want to do it anymore. So I want Mindy to even be like fuck the rules this time around. This is not about the rules anymore. This is about real life, and I don't give a shit about movies anymore. It would be interesting to have that kind of spin. I want the meta commentary to come within the movie just because of different screenwriting choices that they're gonna make. I don't want the movie to be like a deconstruction of something specifically, but I want several like postmodern hints within the movie itself, so that we know that it's still part of the franchise, but basically there is no overall comment on the horror industry, because honestly if you want to make this movie next year or the year after, there is no way you can do something clever. So at the end of the day, do something smaller and it will definitely be more interesting. I will give you details in the next few points, by the way. I'm not just pitching something and not giving you the details. They will come later on, you'll see. Another thing that we have to do and that I put on my bingo card is chill the nostalgia. Scream 6 basically was going insane with the amount of nostalgia, with all the different masks from the previous serial killers being left on the crime scenes, with the kind of weird theater/cinema stage where you could see all the different memorabilia from the stab movies, from the actual real life things things going on within the Scream franchise. We've used it all up. We can't do it anymore in Scream 7, so Scream 7 has to be something 100% original that still draws back on the history of Scream, but it cannot use the nostalgia anymore because we've already done it. And I'm saying this mostly because you knew since the very beginning at least one of the suspects, it was the detective, because of course who would be able to steal so much evidence from different police stations across states? A police officer. It's the only person who would be able to do that, or maybe Kirby, but at the end of the day it was almost impossible for them to take out like the Kirby wild card to tell people that she's alive and she's coming back for this movie, only for her to be turned into the villain. It made no sense at all, and there was no way that was gonna happen. And that is one of the problems of focusing so much on the nostalgia. Even though it looks cool, even though it's like good for the fans at the end of the day, it kind of messes up with the plot of the movie itself, and you don't take it seriously anymore, or you see everything coming from a mile away.
Did that surprise you?
Why?
Because you talk too much. Now shut the fuck up and watch the movie.
The next thing on my bingo card, it might seem like something quite useless, but it will come back like literally right after. I want the Stab franchise to make a comeback. Like, it has to make a comeback. It was revealed in Scream 2022 that there had been another Stab movie that was called just Stab, and it was basically like a legacy sequel as well, and it was hated by the fans and stuff like that. And if you remember that shot of Ghostface with the flamethrower that was featured in the trailers, for example, that one was actually from Stab. That was from a Stab movie. So it was not just a weird marketing thing that they did to attract people's attention. It was there on purpose. And I'm saying that the Stab franchise should return mostly because there is no way that if there was a serial killer going around New York stabbing people around in the metro and across different buildings and stuff like that, there is no way that it wouldn't attract anyone's attention, especially the people who are behind the Stab franchise. They'll be like, this is the moment to make a film and to bank on the national trauma that we've all been part of. There is 100% gonna be a new Stab movie, and that's why I put it on my bingo card. But the most important reason why there needs to be a new Stab movie is because I want it to be the cold opening scene for Scream 7. Are you ready to go down a rabbit hole with me? Because this is insane if they actually manage to do it. There is no way they're gonna do it unless they watch this video, but I think it will look really cool. The cold opening scene in Scream 7 is gonna be directly from the set of Stab 9. And this is not gonna be the same thing as Scream 3, because that's what they were trying to do with that movie, blurring the lines in between cinema and reality. I want to do something a bit different here. So if this is gonna be Stab 9, then it has to be more realistic, because it's supposed to be technically the sequel to a legacy sequel that they did within the franchise, meaning that it's gonna be taken seriously and it's not gonna be fun anymore. It's gonna be basically like a Scream movie.
No, please don't kill me, Mr. Ghostface. I want to be in the sequel.
And I'm saying this because the fact that we are on a set of a Stab movie is actually a plot twist. So we start the movie with a normal killing scene that you would expect in a Scream movie, and then we have that fatidic moment when everyone is died and we have like the Ghostface killer doing that kind of slash across the screen, and someone calls cut. And then we see everyone going back to stage. The directors of this Stab movie are actually the real directors of the Scream 7 movie, so the people from Radio Silence, and we can see them, for example, behind the camera and discussing what the next scene is gonna be about. So everyone is moving around the stage besides the victim. Weirdly enough, is still lying on the floor, not moving an inch, but no one is still worried for the time being because they all have their own job to do, so they're not really focused on what happened right there. We have a small conversation between the directors and the producer of the Stab movie, who is the actress Parker Posey from the movie Scream 3 as well. She's decided to become a movie producer. Of course, she has survived Scream 3, so it will be another legacy character coming back in a role, and she decided to come to the Stab franchise to actually tell the real story, to make it look like a real film, because the Stab movies that she was in portrayed her like a bimbo and portrayed the story as something incredibly like laughable at the end of the day. So she wanted to be up and close to direct the real story. So everyone is talking, and then someone suddenly realized that the Ghostface killer has not removed his mask. He's is just standing over the body of the victim, not doing anything, just standing like a creep in the middle of this stage with the victim at its feet, and everyone starts like calling the actress, asking her to stand up because they need to move on to the next scene, but she doesn't, and people start getting scared. And this is the moment where the Ghostface killer actually raises his head and he's like,
This movie doesn't end well for you. Oh shit.
and he starts killing everyone on set. He kills like the lighting technicians, the sound people, the director themselves. The producer is the last one to die, and she's the one who makes the final scream until the title of the movie comes on. So Parker Posey makes a big impression in this cold opening scene. After this scene here, because of this tragedy, there will not be any stab movies anymore, because everyone will be too scared to actually do anything about it. So don't worry about it. This cold opening is not related to anything going on for the rest of the movie. We're not gonna move to movie sets and stuff like that, because the production will completely stop and they will not make a movie anymore because of this national tragedy once again. And if you want to add Gale Weathers, you can as well, since in the previous movie she clearly wrote another book about what happened in Woodsboro the year before. So it would be kind of interesting if she actually was an advisor on this movie here. So if you don't want Parker Posey to come back, then you can have a Gale Weathers and you have the same thing going on, but with Gale Weathers instead of Parker Posey. It would still work out exactly the same. But I think that this cold opening scene is perfect. It's a callback to the original trilogy, the third movie that closed everything, especially when it comes to the Sidney Prescott storyline and Maureen Prescott's story as well. But at the same time, you completely delete the stab movies from history, because as they said in the previous movie, fuck the movies. Like these Ghostface killers from this new generation, they don't give a shit about the movies. It's all about reality. It's all about making their own versions of the story that they want to tell. This is amazing, right? And if you don't like it, well, I don't care, because in my head it sounds really cool. Now we have to talk about the killer motivations, right? It's one of the most important things. First of all, I have two ideas for this, and specifically about how many killers are gonna be there and stuff like that. It would be interesting to have 2 killers instead of 3 this time around. It would be really interesting for both of them to be women, because you would be mirroring what they did with the original Scream movie. But I actually have a better idea than this. So when it comes to the bingo card, I will take the second option that I'm talking about right now, which is gonna be insane, of course, but hear me out. This final movie is still about Sidney Prescott. We have to get rid of everything. We have to close out the franchise, which is something they were trying to do with Scream 6 as well, cutting out all the loose ends and end the Scream franchise as it is. So the Ghostface killers are trying to kill Sidney Prescott, but they can't find her. So that's why they need to attract her attention, which also explains why they would be going after the new generations of Scream survivors, because these Ghostface killers were actually aware of everything that was going on in Woodsboro. So they remember that Sidney Prescott actually came around for those killings to protect the teenagers, and she might do it again, especially if she doesn't come back because of Gale Weathers. One thing that I want to fix as well is to have none of the Ghostface killers to be people that we know. I'm kind of tired of the old thing that they tried to play with, especially in the last 2 movies, of everyone is a suspect, everyone could be a suspect. I've been watching these movies for almost 20 years. I know that everyone can be a suspect. They've been playing on that for such a long time. It's become kind of redundant and boring, and at the end of the day, they don't want to commit to writing these characters too much, so it becomes quite obvious who is the killer. It's very often the characters who don't have that much going on with their lives. If you look at the weird guy, for example, from Scream 6, whose name I completely forgot, it was really clear that he was the killer because he was just a blank character, right? So this time around, I want Ghostface killers who are not part of the main groups. We can still have maybe the main characters being like, I mean, in the other versions, the killers were people around us. Maybe it's the same this time around, but it's not actually true. So they'll be trying to guess, investigate who the killers are, but it will be impossible because the killers are not part of the main cast. And big plot twist, because this is the end of a franchise, so we need to go big. We need to shoot as big and high as possible, like they did with Scream 3.
Lights out! Now you want to get nuts? Come on! Let's get nuts.
Jill is coming back, and I have an entire thing on why and how Jill can come back, and it is related to Stumacher. This is something the fans have been discussing for such a long time. I'm pretty sure it's not gonna happen, but I'm gonna tell you why I think it needs to happen to give closure to the entire franchise, to the main characters, and to make just an incredible movie and end of a franchise. Stumacher has survived, and I don't really have an explanation on why or how Stumacher has managed to stay alive, but I do have an explanation for Jill and how she could be alive. First of all, think about it. The original killer from the very first movie and the new legacy killer from Scream 4 teaming up to destroy everything and everyone to close finally the chapter. It will be interesting because Stu Macher in the meantime has managed to create a life outside of Sidney Prescott. That's why he's not meddled with anything, and that's why he's managed to stay hidden as well, because he's changed his name. Maybe he even has a new face, even though it would be interesting to see it like all scarred up and stuff. Maybe he has a family as well, and he's been able to actually grow into like a productive member of society. But he has this thing at the back of his head, this PTSD of suffering so much because of Sidney Prescott. And of course he's been following all the different killings that have been going on across the years, and there is one thing that makes him snap. It's Jill. It's the Jill murders back in Scream 4 that makes him snap, but it doesn't make him snap enough to actually go after Sidney. He goes actually to the hospital and he saves Jill. He keeps her hidden in a medical coma for like a couple of years and stuff like that because she's not able to wake up. Of course it sounds a bit weird and convoluted, but I feel like there could be a way of figuring this out. Especially in the States, there are so many people like changing identities and disappearing. We've seen so many Ghostface killers like evading the police for such a long time, and even like Kirby herself, we spotted the FBI, she was not able to prevent any of the murders that happened in Scream 6. So I feel like it's very good to say that the police is shit within this franchise and is not able to have a grasp of anything going on. It was really clear in the first few movies, but it's really clear even now. That's why Stu Macher was able to escape and get better and then go back to a sort of normal life, and that's also why he came back. He nursed Jill back into health until she was ready to get her final revenge. And that's why it took so much time for her to actually get back at Sidney, because she was in a medically induced coma. Because I don't know if you remember, but they literally fried her brain.
Have one final word?
What? Please?
No. Clear.
Clear?
Clear.
So it would make sense because of that. And once she wakes up, she gets up to speed with all those things that Stu Macher tells her, and Stu gives her the choice to basically either get her revenge or disappear like him, but he will support her whatever she decides to do. So we got these two killers from different generations teaming up to kill everyone off so that they can go back and have a normal life. Sounds like a really cool thing, right? It will never happen, but what if? What if it happens? It would be so cool. And those are the main things about Scream 7 that I wanted to talk about. Those are the most important plot points that I think need to be changed and need to be improved, especially if you want to make a movie that stands out and that is not just a good slasher movie, that is an actual good Scream movie. Now I have some other things to add to my bingo card here. They're more fun than actually like interesting plot changes, so I'm gonna grab my phone and tell you about them, because at the end of the day I still want to get some of this bingo card filled in, and I will not be able to do that if I only go through different weird speculations and fan theories, right? The next thing that I put down is at least one chase sequence with two Ghostface killers at the same time, which is something that we've never seen when you think about it. We've got that really cool scene with Chad where they got the two Ghostface killers like stabbing him at the same time. How cool would it be if we have a chase sequence with two Ghostface killers going after either one victim or multiple victims at the same time? I feel like it would be really exciting, and that goes with the thing I was saying before, raising the stakes, making sure that we actually care about what happens to these characters here and that we know that they're in actual danger. The next thing I put down in my bingo card is a character gets stabbed and goes to the hospital and survives, which is something that has happened so many different times within the Scream franchise. So I was like, if you put that in, it will happen 100% sure in Scream 7. That is almost 100% like a sure bet they will happen. The next thing I put down is one of the four main characters gets a new partner and they're killed by Ghostface, which is something that happens like all the time within the Scream franchise, and I'm pretty sure it will happen once again.
You can never have sex. Big no
no! Big no!
Another thing to put in my bingo card, any of the characters say some bullshit like, I don't know why, but this one feels different. They always say it within the Scream franchise. Dewey is the one that said it in Scream 2022, even though technically that movie was not that different from the other ones, but I'm 100% sure they will try to reuse that in the next movie as well. The next one is Ghostface killed someone by setting them on fire.
Stop, I'm sorry about Dewey.
Fuck you.
If there is one thing we can all agree on when it comes to Scream, is that they're not really creative when it comes to the kills. There is too much stabbing, and that's also why a lot of people got excited about the Bottega scene and Ghostface actually using a firearm on screen like that, and not just in the final third act once he has removed his mask. It would be really cool and really Machiavellic for him or her to actually set someone on fire. Very dramatic, very cool. Plus it would attract everyone's attention. Can you imagine if they do it like in the middle of the street? What the fuck? Another thing that I would really like to happen is there needs to be at least one body part being amputated, of course by a Ghostface killer. That's something that they haven't really done that much when you think about it. They've stabbed through hands and through guts, but they haven't really like cut arms or cut fingers and stuff like that, and I feel like if you have like a blunt weapon, it would make sense to actually do it, right? So if you want to raise the stakes, if you want to make it more gory, and it seems like this new trilogy is definitely more gory and more serious than the original, then I want it to be at the same standard as other slasher movies, with body parts flying around or people scooping eyeballs and throwing them on the floor, something weird like that.
'Tis but a scratch.
A scratch? Your arm's off.
No, it isn't.
Well, what's that then?
I've heard worse.
My last part of my bingo card is gonna be Ghostface tortures someone to get information out of them. This is something I was criticizing before as well. We've got this idea of the Ghostface killers knowing everything about everyone. We always have a feeling that they can control everything. They have eyes everywhere. So it would be interesting if we have Ghostface killers who are actually trying to obtain information. And also it goes well with the entire pitch that I did before when it comes to them trying to find out where Sydney is, and torturing people is the best way to do it. Plus it would be interesting as well because I feel like the only way that they torture people is when they chase them down, slash them a little bit, and then they run away, for example, and that is a bit of like psychological torture. But it would be interesting if they actually tied someone to a chair and just killed him like that. Which reminds me, for example, of that moment in Scream 4 when Kirby was on the phone talking to Ghostface and the other Ghostface killer was actually the one tied to the chair. We need more things like that. I think it's way more fun than just going around and slashing people. We need a bit of change. We need to raise the stakes, as I said before. But anyways, this is my official bingo card with all the Scream 7 predictions. I have a full-on breakdown of Scream 6 that you can check out. That video was incredibly review bombed by everyone on YouTube. So many thumbs down, and at the end of the day almost no one saw it because of that, because YouTube was like, if you got so many thumbs down, it must be an incredibly dangerous video, because that's what the thumbs down stand for. It's not just when you don't agree with something. YouTube thinks it's a dangerous video that it should not promote to other viewers, which is not the case. I think it's a really interesting take on the Scream franchise, and it's very different from everyone else's take, so I recommend it if you'd like. Anyways, if you like this video, you might like what I released last week, which is a Dungeons and Dragons review where basically I try to convince you that that might be one of the best fantasy movies that we've seen since Lord of the Rings itself. I know it's quite acclaimed, so give it a watch. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Every single like that you drop will go to Stumacher himself, and we'll try to bring him back to life. So smash that like button to resuscitate him Frankenstein style for the next Scream movie. I'm Patrick, and this is Torn Apart.
Back in the 90s, I was in a very famous TV show.
Are you ready for the post-credit scene? Have you been a good boy? Have you subscribed? Okay, fine. Here it is.
Oh, look at me. I'm all dead. I'm a gross, scary, severed head. Come on, please. Do you know who I am? I'm Miss Teen. You're really giving me a headache. And you got blood all over my Gucci sweater. I hope you're gonna pay for that. Ah! I will not.
Da 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 da. Da 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 da.